I believe we are all in, good to go. And we've got a few more people joining in on the audience. I'm just going to hold it off just for a few more minutes while we get started. So, the purpose of the conversation today during the session, we're going to talk about the state of prop tech, recent changes and trends, and how all of this impacts operators, how companies deal with the fragmentation and complexity of all the different technology systems, and how you can implement this in your business, how to leverage technology to deliver a seamless experience for guests, employees, your partners with better and greater efficiency, and finally, what to expect from the hospitality tech sector in the long term. So how to prepare for what is coming in the space. So very briefly, just why are we talking about the hospitality tech fragmentation? There's more and more tech companies coming into this space and creating overwhelming operators, if you will, with choice. There's more mergers and acquisitions happening as well, on one hand, driving the industry towards a certain amount of consolidation. So what's next? What is happening for your business? What is happening for the technology landscape? And how do you navigate picking the right tech stack? Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. The chat on the conversation will be on the right-hand side of this platform, and you can ask questions. We will only get to your questions towards the end of this discussion, but please feel free to share any questions or topics within that chat box. So I think we can get started. We'll get started with a very brief introduction. So myself, my name is Francois. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Enzo Connect. We are a guest experience platform in the hospitality space. And our goal is to solve the fragmentation for guest experience by connecting a lot of different tools together. We'll move on to Terry. If you want to introduce yourself, you have quite a bit of experience in this space. Go ahead.
I'm Terry Whyte. I'm coming to you from Florida's Gulf Coast, where it's currently 80 degrees and not a cloud in the sky, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
Amazing. You want to tell us a bit more about your background as a property manager?
I've been in business for about 30 years. I was in the business just before VRBO came live, and right now started with one property. Right now, we're at just about 50 properties right now.
Amazing. Amazing. And now on to you, John. Give us a little intro.
Yeah, my name is John On. I actually got into the space with a business out in Honolulu. It's called Ohana Stay. It's a management business. And I started out with a simple task of trying to find technology that worked for my small little business. That took me on changing PMSs more than 15 different times. And through that, I gained a lot of experience with the technology in the space. And so everything that I do is kind of from my management business, what I learn, what I see other people struggling with, and then finding solutions around that.
I love it. You want to give us a brief little explanation of tech tape as well, since that's a big
Yeah,
piece of this conversation, if you will.
right. So Tech Tape is a separate company that I founded. Um, and what we're essentially doing is Tech Tape is a play on words of duct tape. There's a lot of technology fragmentation in the industry, and people have a lot of trouble finding the right technology for them. And so what I found is if you can find the right technology that fits your business, and whether it's integrated or not, find a way for it to work for you. And that's what I've done for my business, and that's what I do for the clients and partners that I work with.
Fantastic. So we're going to start off with a very high level question, just on for both you, Terry, and John, on as industry experts, whether it's in the technology side of things for hospitality or just managing properties in general. How do you guys currently assess the current state of hospitality technology? How do you find the right tools, and what are the different verticals that you see within the space? Maybe you want to get us started, Terry?
Um, First of all, I think, do we have fragmentation? Yes. Is it a problem? Yes. But it's a very good problem to have. I don't think anybody foreseen in 2020, post Memorial Day weekend, that we as an industry would be competing directly head on with the hotel industry. And then uh, COVID accelerated our accent to the top to compete by at least 5 years. And the only reason we were able to do that is because we had so much great tech in our industry at the time. Tech is fully responsible for us being accelerated 5 years ahead and then being able to take advantage of it. So do we have a problem? But we have a very good problem. So we're in
That's
a
fair.
really good space.
How about yourself, John? What are your thoughts on the assessment of hospitality technology?
I have to agree with Terry. I mean, again, the fragmentation presents some challenges, but it also provides you with a lot of opportunities and a lot of diversity of potential solutions that fits your business. And the reason why I keep on stressing your business is there's no such thing as a STR hospitality school. So we've all built our businesses the way we built our businesses. And so there's no like perfect fit. It's not like Microsoft Word where there's a way that you write and you just go and get the work done. And so having a lot of options is very good. I'm glad I have AutoHost, Superhog, and Safely as options, right? And the goal is for you to really find what works for your business, and then, like Terry said, take advantage of it to really leverage and make your business grow. So I don't think we're in a dire situation. I think, Francois, you and I spoke about this before. What I see my and TechTape's role is actually to defragment the fragmented industry as opposed to try to consolidate or, solve some dire problem in the industry.
100%. And if you look, just for those who are joining in, whether it's live on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or within the Riverside platform, in terms of what there is in technology, we're looking at channel managers, property management systems, CRMs, guest experience platform, KYC companies, smart lock companies, housekeeping and maintenance. The list keeps growing. And I think the growing pains of a growing industry is this innovation and finding ways to connect it all together so you can continue to scale your business. So on that note, for both of you as hospitality operators, how do you deal with this abundance and complexity of tech systems, and how do you implement this in your business? First, I guess, how do you make the choice? Is it based on a specific problem you face and then you go find a solution for that? Do you aggregate all the different problems and trying to find the one-stop shop solution? How do you navigate the complexity to solve your problems with technology? Maybe we can start with Terry again.
When I chose my PMS several years ago, I chose it for one reason and one reason only: to do as much as possible inside my PMS without ever leaving. On a daily basis, I very seldom ever leave my PMS. I do everything I do in there, whether it's quoting, I do my quoting for the tape chart, with my unified inbox, all my financials, my PMS CRM is in there. Other than doing pricing, I have to go outside for price labs when I do that. But I can honestly say on a daily basis, I really don't go outside my PMS for
Fair.
one reason. I designed it that way.
Fair enough. Now you continue though to use different technologies within that PMS that connect. You mentioned Price Labs.
Yeah,
I
right,
believe, if I'm not mistaken, you started using DAC as well on the guest experience side of things. Are there other
right.
tools that you see being helpful, like around, I don't know, you have a specific CRM for your owner side of things, or you use spreadsheets maybe for other pieces of the equation?
No, not at all. Basically, I do everything inside my PMS. Yes, do I have DAC? I just started using DAC, by the way. Um, but to me, there's going to be two big winners in this space going forward. We're never going to eliminate fragmentation, but we're going to make sense of it. It's going to work together in a cohesive way. And the two big winners are going to be on. It's going to be the PMSs. It's really the PMSs are morphing into the big three now. What we have now is we have Track, we have Streamline with the acquisition of Lightmaker. People are underestimating what that's doing there. Track mopped the floor with Streamline for 2 straight years here. Those days are over. The acquisition changes everything. Guesty, I think, is there. They have the want to be the best in the industry, and I would say that you very seldom ever see a PMS in Europe using PMS in Europe and then a PMS in North America. It's either one or the other. They very seldom would ever cross. But Guesty will be the platform that bridges that gap. It won't matter where the properties are in Europe or whether they're in North America. They're that strong a PMS. That's where I see the future. So you've got the big three, and then you've got 3 or 4 others. People are underestimating Jetstream, how good their platform is, how deep their platform is, and then you've got Journey, you've got Hostfully, and then probably I'm hoping Direct is going to be part of that equation. Then on the other side, we're on the other side of the PMS. the three biggest technologies and the three best technologies in our industry are Breezeway, Enzo, and DAC. And they're going to lead us. The fragmentation is right in front of our face. It's there. The answer's there. We just don't see it yet. And I'm going to explain a little later how that's going to happen, but it's going to happen for sure. And those six are going to play the key roles in the future. And one data point I want to bring to attention before we go too deep into this is in 2018, I predicted what the future of the PMS was going to be. And that's exactly what has happened. And then when you look at when Expedia sunsetted V12, so V12 was one of the deepest, best, most respected PMSs on the market. So they sunsetted it. One single PMS, got almost 100% of those clients. Not 50%, not 60%, 100%. And I'm going to explain to you later how Enzo and DAC and Breezeway are going to influence that same model. And that's what's going to happen.
I'm interested to hear. That part I do not know. So I'm very intrigued to hear how we're going to help influence that. And how about yourself, John? Because I know you've got quite a bit of technology that you use, even sometimes duplicate pieces that solve parts of the solution, and you're tech taping it all together. Not to play on the words here, but you want to share a bit more how you've made that decision and what your thoughts have been around that fragmentation?
Yeah. First, I'd like to just say I agree with Terry in terms of the big players. There are some that are rising to the top. There are even new entries coming in still as a PMS, which I find mind-boggling. With that said, there are multiple universes, parallel universes within the short-term rental industry. There are like the traditional VRMA members, multi-generational property management companies that were on V12 and moved on. There's also a huge audience of people who are jumping into the short-term rental world right now. And as much as the tracks and the LMPMs of the world would be rising to the top, unfortunately, a lot of these companies are like, come back when you grow up and you have 50 properties, when you have 100 properties. And so because of that, I think there's also going to be kind of the long tail, that there are going to be winners in the long tail because there's a fragmentation of the operators as well.
To touch on that point, I guess it depends on the client types, and this is something as a tech vendor we have to constantly look at, right? What is our annual contract value of our clients? Are we signing more 3 listing property managers? Are we signing more 100 listing property managers? Who do we want to focus on? And I think it touches back on what, John, you had mentioned, and I'm sure, Terry, you can agree with, is every property manager is different. Every business in the vacation rental segment is different. Every owner is different. Every guest is different. And so being able to solve it for everyone is most likely not going to happen, at least in our opinion. Being able to be very focused on the problems that you solve as a tech company and the audience that you solve it for is most likely going to sort of illustrate the key winners for the different verticals. I mean, Accor Hotels uses a very different system than a boutique hotel in Toronto, and there's a reason behind that. The boutique hotel doesn't need such a complex system, since they might have 1 or 2 properties versus an Accor that has hundreds, if not thousands, of properties. So on that note, how do you respond to the hospitality tech fragmentation and consolidation trends? We've kind of assessed different types of trends. There's mergers and acquisitions. There's marketplaces, where more and more vendors can be integrated to your property management system, but it seems to be a lot of choice for operators. Or there's also white labels. Terry, you mentioned Journey as well as Jetstream being one of our clients, where we actually white label. So where do you see that trend going, and who do you think are the clear winners in that space?
The clear winners are going to be the 6 that I just mentioned. It's going to be, and there's one reason that one PMS picked up all the V12, 100% of the V12s. There's one reason only. Every property manager with more than 40 properties will migrate to the strongest technology every single time. Every single time. And that's what happened there. And that's what's going to happen with Breezeway. That's what's going to happen with Enzo. And that's what's going to happen with DAC. And what John said, I totally agree. If you have less than 40 properties, these PMS companies, they don't even want you. You know, they've made it known. They don't want you. But the problem is the people with 20 or less properties, they make up about 80% of all the operators in our space. However, their definition of a tech stack is Airbnb, maybe Verbo, and spreadsheets. So for that reason, I am saying when we talk about consolidation in our industry is not ready for it yet. It's pretty close. But I would say that the PMSs are in big trouble, and channel managers are in some kind of trouble. And the mid-tier to at the bottom of the high-tier PMSs, to me, they're in big trouble. And that's where you're going to see the big.
In terms of the strategy, oh, sorry, John, just to double down on the strategy piece, because when I look at a property management system, they're fighting two battles at once, right? They're fighting the OTA channel management battle where they need to consolidate all of those different channels. Now, we've already seen this with the acquisition of Guesty acquiring a channel manager, potentially pushing out some of their partners on that front. As they start to internalize all the connections with the OTAs, while simultaneously fighting the battle to have all the different verticals, whether it's guest experience, cleaning, pricing, loyalty, whatever it can be. Fighting two battles at the same time leads to we either build it, we buy it, we partner with it. And it seems like a lot of these PMSs want to build it and are using a marketplace as a means to better assess what is the next wave of technology. So do you think that mergers and acquisitions is the best approach to this innovation? Do you think that a simple marketplace integration is the best approach, or do you think that the actual white label of some of these partners would be the best approach to solving the fragmentation within your property management system? I hope that makes sense.
I definitely do not see it being marketplace. I do not see that happening at all. What's never going to happen in our industry is you're not going to take the single biggest important part of a tech stack, which is the PMS. You're not going to morph it into a glorified reservation software and integrate it with 35 different softwares and have 35 different logins and dashboards and stuff like that. It's never. And just look at what happened with V12. If that theory ever had any chance of getting any traction, it would have been then. But you know what happened? The exact opposite happened. The exact opposite happened of marketplace. And that's what's going to happen with Enzo. It's going to happen with DAC, and it's going to happen with Breezeway.
That's fair. John, what about your thoughts?
I'll
oh, go ahead.
I'll explain why it's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%.
So no, on the consolidation piece, you see what Guesty has done, right? So Guesty last year bought MyVR and Your Porter. A big part of it was just a defensive move, right? Pick up those clients and whatnot. With MyVR, they did what a lot of consolidation does is you buy it and you kill it so that, you get rid of competition. I am somewhat surprised that they are keeping Your Porter and using that as an entryway drug into, Guesty for pros. And I think that's a very smart move. But for the most part, consolidation is going to kill the innovation and the diversity that we have in the industry. Getting to your question, I think some sort of white labeling is probably the way it's going to end up. And why? As much as Guesty or Track might have a lot of resources, there's no way that they can devote as much resources into dynamic pricing as Wheelhouse or Price Labs. At the same time, the same level of resources to guest experience as Enzo and DAC have. At the same time, the same amount of resources for maintenance as Breezeway does, right? It's just not feasible. I mean, they can have a feature that says, yes, we do maintenance and cleaning. And so at a certain point, it has to be specialized expertise that then talks to everyone. Now, the challenge right now, the fragmentation is everyone is picking and choosing which PMS do I integrate with so that I can get my ideal customer. And so there's kind of a gate where people have to pick and choose and bet on winners and losers in terms of the PMS. And that is the fragmentation that's happening. So if you can, white labeling can help consolidate it, or some mechanism of kind of, bringing everything together. That's how that's how it'll all kind of work together. Um, right. So just M&A by itself, like just in other industries, the barrier to entry is so much higher that consolidation works. I think in our industry, a lot of the barrier to entry, whether it's for the PM or even on the tech side, I would say, is a lot. It seems to be a lot lower, and because of that, new entries, I believe, will keep coming into the space.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I do want to address, I know we said we were going to hold off on the questions, but I do want to address a comment there that I'm seeing from Philip in terms of the stereotype for the under 40 properties. It is very true that there are a lot of systems that are actually tailored and focused on people having less property. So you're not stuck on spreadsheets. I mean, one example, John, would be Hospitable that you use, that is your effectively one of your PMSs, if you will, that caters to smaller audiences with less properties. I think it's just the evolution of clients over time. Like as you grow, your tech stack becomes more complex and your needs change. When you get started, you might not need certain functionalities of a more robust PMS, and as you grow, those are going to change. Now, to the comment of marketplace versus white label versus acquisitions, I would say personally, I think the acquisitions game is killing innovation. It's a money play. It's a play from private equity firms. It's a play from venture capital firms. Whoever has the most money can buy these companies, sunset the technology, and consolidate clients on one system, even if it doesn't solve the problems for them because they have no choice. It's either that or move to a completely different system, which doesn't necessarily make sense, considering that the overarching system that has acquired the other system has made it easy for you to transition to their core platform. But Terry, to your comment about the marketplace itself, thinking that that's going to be dead, and I got to be honest with you, I think I actually disagree with you on the marketplace piece. I think it's an opening for more innovation, but I would say it's all about the integration itself. And I think a lot of companies, a lot of partners in our space cut corners on the integration because they want to consolidate data on their platform and they want to be the big fish. One thing that we do at Enzo is we consistently two-way sync all of the data. It does not matter who controls the data. At the end of the day, it's your data. You need this, whether it's in your PMS, whether it's in your guest platform, whether it's in your cleaning tool. You're going to need bits and pieces of each of these platforms to speak with each other. So I think while I look at the white label approach being the solution to not having many logins, I look at the marketplace as being the solution to data sharing, which effectively solves the fragmentation. I do not think that having multiple logins is the real fundamental problem. I think it's the fact that systems don't communicate with each other. I mean, to manage Enzo Connect, I have God knows how many systems, whether it's our CRM or this tool that we're using for the webinar, cold call email sequences through another system. So yeah, I would say it depends on the value that the marketplace brings. But on that point, what would be the result or impact, you think, if we continue to go one direction or the other? Like what happens if we keep seeing mergers and acquisitions in the hospitality tech space? What happens if we keep seeing more and more marketplace integrations? What are your predictions to the next steps? And I know I'm going a bit off script here, but just based on the direction of the conversation. Terry, you want to get us started on that?
Okay, so I think you misunderstand what I'm saying. What I was saying is you're never going to get rid of plug and play. You can't because and if you look at the innovation in our industry, all the innovation has come from outside the PMS. The PMS has not innovated. It's come from DAC, it's come from Breezeway, it's come from Enzo. All of that is coming together. But what's going to happen is what I'm saying is going to happen is you're going to have the big PMSs, you're going to have the big three, the best communication tools, what they are, with a two-way set integration. And it is not going to be the PMS is going to control, Track has the grandest roadmap to the future. Who knows how that is going to turn out in the end? But definitely, I say the big three on the PMS side and the big three on the guest communication. I think there's no question our industry is headed towards the guest experience. Everything is going to revolve around the guest experience. That's why the DACs and the Enzos are going to play such an important part in our industry. And when you put those two together, but let's just break it down somewhat. So you've got Breezeway, you've got the single biggest, I consider the single best technology in our industry that's not a PMS with their operations module. But now they're into the guest communication, text. Why are they there? Because you can't send a single text message from your PMS to your guests. So what do? They introduce texting. Now they're competing with DAC and Enzo with the guest experience. Okay, so in my opinion, they're going to be the single best and deepest technology in our industry that's not a PMS. And then you go over to DAC. So you've got DAC, you've got the guest experience, you've got the upsells, you've got the communication, you've got everything that's going on. And then they're not even doing that. Now they're writing codes to remote locks and passing them to the guests and storing them in the. And then you get into Enzo. You look at Enzo. So people I know when they look at Enzo, they're going to go, oh, you got guest verification. Oh, you've got guest communication. You've got upsells. You've got everything that you can think of, you can dream of here. But now, not only that, in our business, you need two PMSs to be successful. You need a PMS CRM. You need a marketing CRM. So what do you have now? There's Enzo. Has both a PMS CRM and a marketing CRM. All in one. That is going. You want the answer to fragmentation. There's the answer to fragmentation. What's going to happen with a two-way integration with a PMS is what's going to happen. And this,
I appreciate it. I do want to
theory of you're going to take a mid-level PMS and morph it into a reservation software is not going to happen.
Fair. And I do want to put a little disclosure here. This is not a self-promoting webinar in any way, although I do appreciate the kind comments, Terry. And John, do you want to share a bit more?
I'm just saying the way I
appreciate it. I very much appreciate it. And John, what are your thoughts on this? Because this is a hot topic. I mean, constantly what I hear, and even when we reach out to people to sign them up to Enzo Connect, the first thing is, oh my God, here we go with another system that I have to sign up to. And what we've noticed that works really well is when we talk about in our emails and our cold calls, what we notice is when we say, hey, we actually work with X, Y, Z, A, B, C of the existing systems that you have. And it kind of relates with a lot of operators who are like, damn, I do use all of these tools. John, what's your thoughts on the different strategies that tech companies are taking, whether it's, again, consolidation from M&A, marketplace, or white labels? And I'm sure there's other approaches. What is your thoughts on clear winners and what the best approach would be?
I am not as definitive in terms of clear winners as Terry is. I think there are a lot of different variables and paths. With that said, I think the way I would rank it is I agree that M&A is really kind of it's an investment play, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing in and of itself. We all want to make money. But you also see lots of industries where private equity have kind of chewed up the industry, kind of destroyed the soul of the industry and then moved on to the next industry. And I feel like that's what may be happening within our industry. So I guess M&A, I don't believe will be the solution for the fragmentation. Marketplace and white labeling, I think depending on how those are implemented, those are the ways where different technologies are able to speak with each other. Basically, it's at the end of the day, it's not a complex set of data that needs to be streamed, shared between the PMS and the outside tools. It's actually a fairly specific amount of data that needs to be shared in order for the functionality to be there. And so to be able to create an ecosystem where individual companies like Enzo does not have to decide which PMS is the winner, but say, hey, we have this, and here are the points that we need to sync. That would be the way. So it could be the marketplace. I think white labeling will be could end up being a better end user experience because it's all kind of packaged and the interface and everything is there. But I think it's one of those two ways to figure out on the consolidation.
100%. And to a comment that I'm seeing in the section, and I fully agree with Richard here, is third party services such as ourselves are at the mercy of the booking data silo. That is an absolute. I mean, this is a problem that we're constantly looking to solve, especially when we integrate with a property management system that doesn't have certain functionalities, doesn't have webhooks, doesn't enable us to do certain things, which starts to restrict the functionalities of the third party services, whether it's your pricing tool, whether it's your cleaning and operations tool, your guest experience system. And this is a battle that we are all fighting. It's whoever is closest to the money, whoever is closest to the data at the end of the day has access to doing whatever they want to do, whether it's be an all-in-one solution, whether it's share the data across different tools. In my opinion, I think the marketplace approach does work. However, it's the abundance of choice that is creating friction, I think, for operators. When you have 10 different guest experience platforms, 10 different cleaning and operations tools, which one do you choose and why? And I think it goes back to this idea of understanding what your audience is, who are your guests, who are your owners, how many properties are you managing, and what are you trying to accomplish? How much are you trying to scale to, and in how much time? I look at an operator, one of our clients, who scaled from 4 units 6 months ago to over 150 units thereafter. Obviously, when you scale that quickly, systems start to break. Your first PMS doesn't work. Then suddenly you need new tools to start onboarding properties at that rate. And what they were able to accomplish was actually bringing all of these different tools around a centralized system that they controlled, Airtable. Now, I know it doesn't sound very glorified to integrate everything to an Airtable because it's basically me saying integrate everything to a spreadsheet. But John, I know you've done something similar here as well, where you've gone about and actually consolidated it yourself with your own. I don't even know what we would call it here. I mean, it's not a PMS, but it's a centralized. What would you call it? I don't know. Tell me more about that approach, and we'll jump on to you, Terry, right after with some more questions. John, what are your thoughts on this centralizing that data around Airtable or something?
So this is where I would say the data can all be in one place, or the high level data can all be in one place. And you could also have a high level dashboard all in one place without having to jump back and forth. And again, I don't think the login is the fundamental problem, but if you have the high level data in one place, then when things are going as planned, that's all you need. And you only need to jump into the specific other technology when things are not going as expected. So I would put it very simply that way. And I would not underestimate the no code, low code movement that's happening right now. That is what's really enabling a lot of people like your customer, Francois, to really custom fit the fragmented technology into a way that works for their business. One other thing I want to just jump in on is short-term rental industry within real estate is the one industry where like people flock to technology, right? Most of the other like multifamily, long-term rentals, like the fact that you could DocuSign right now is like, wow, we're using technology, right? But because of that, a lot of people look for technology to solve problems that technology may not be the right solution. You know, having a human being actually taking care of it, right? And I think it's that like desire to have technology take care of everything is also something that's happening in our industry. So the one thing I'll say is really filter down to what is the problem that you have, and is technology the right approach for the solution? I don't want to waste time on, but I found myself trying to find a technological solution. And then my wife just said, why don't you just like leave some additional supplies hidden away so the guests can access it if they need it? And I was like, yeah, I don't need to solve it with technology.
That's fair. Sometimes the balance of human is undermined by technology in this space because of I guess I mean I'm going a bit off script here, but do you think it just has to do with vacation rentals being potentially less professional than hotels, or would you disagree with that? And Terry, maybe you want to share your thoughts on that as to how and why the technology space is evolving so quickly.
There's just so many great companies and hospitality needs an answer to, and they see an opportunity too. Like most of these companies, like you see, which you look at Enzo, you look at that, you look at Breezeway, they've looked at a PMS and they've seen something, a deficiency, and they set out to solve it. So that's why we're we're seeing the innovation because they failed to innovate. But as far as the dashboards that you guys were talking about, we're talking about fragmentation. So fragmentation is, but if you talk to any property manager, the one single biggest complaint they have is having to log into so many different systems to get through a day. That's a single big, and that's why we're talking about fragmentation. That's what fragmentation is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. And to me, the big winners are going to be, it's the Enzo. If you connect the Enzo with the better PMSs, you talked about the lack of data, the lack of the two-way sync, the lack of what's inside the API. In the API, what you're going to find is the better, stronger PMSs. You're not going to have that problem with. I already see it with the systems that I'm using. I would guess, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I would guess the challenges that you are facing are with the lower tiered PMSs.
That's fair. I mean, it depends. It's sometimes also the more old school PMSs who don't necessarily have the most modern APIs or send data in certain formats that are a bit more old school that you would expect. And when I say old school, I mean pre-2015, so not that old school.
That is exactly why I'm saying people are underestimating Streamline's acquisition of Lightmaker. There's probably no PMS that innovated more in the last 4 years than Lightmaker. And then I would say Streamline's biggest challenge is aging technology. They've solved, and my people on the inside at Streamline told me the acquisition was technology. They bought them for technology. So what I'm saying is people are underestimating what is happening there. You look at Track's roadmap to the future. It's what is it? It's clearly there's a message there. They want to be the closest thing to the all-in-one solution in the industry. And then now you look at Streamline, now it's game on. I said it before, Track mopped the floor with Streamline for 2 straight years. That is over. Now it's game on. This is serious business. And I say, if we don't hear some major thunder from Guesty before the end of the year, not because of the acquisition of Lightmaker, not because of Track's future to the roadmap, just because they're a progressive PMS, they want to be the best in the industry. And so whatever they have, the next big thing they announce, I'm sure it was already in the works before the Track roadmap and the acquisition of Lightmaker, just because they want to be the best in the industry.
So, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so some of Inhabit IQ's previous acquisitions kind of, I scratched my head. Like, they're all very similar, and bringing on LMPM, it was just like, that was the one that was like, of all the M&A, that's the one that makes a ton of sense.
It changes everything.
Yeah, congratulations to Adrian and and Sean and everyone on the team there. One thing I'll say about the technology and short-term rentals, going back to a previous point, a lot of people enter the space for passive income. Now, short-term rental business is not passive, but because they enter thinking that this is a passive income endeavor, they latch onto the next new shiny bright technology thing that promises to make it more passive. So far, technology simplifies and complicates, right? And right now we're struggling with that dichotomy of simplifying one thing, and by simplifying that, a whole slew of other can of worms get opened up.
When you take the depth of a Breezeway, the depth of an Enzo, you take the depth of an Enzo and DAC, you marry that with the depth of a super strong PMS, you're going to reduce the fragmentation. You're going to reduce the headaches. You're going to reduce the problem. You're solving the fragmentation problem right there.
That's fair. I would say at the end of the day, it does involve a full synchronization of your systems with your property management system and vice versa with your OTAs. At the end of the day, it's a data play for all of us as tech companies. Who is closest to the end user data? And I've spoken about this at one of the conferences, the Book Direct show, around how Google had wiped out Yelp. Why? Because they had aggregated and consolidated all of the review data on Google, and then they pulled the plug. They said, well, why do we need to get Yelp reviews when we have Google reviews now? Thank you for all this preliminary data on rating all the Google places, because Yelp was using Google Places to find out the restaurants and so on, and then pretty much wiped it. So at the end of the day, it's where is the information coming from? The reservation starts at the meta search, the Google, the Yahoo, well, I don't know if Yahoo's still up and running, the Bings of the world goes into the OTA. They make their reservation or your direct booking website, moves into your channel manager, your PMS, and then your different systems, whether it's your cleaning and operations, your guest experience, and so on. So as a third party service, we are the furthest away from that information, and we rely on the property management system to be available with that information so that we can operate the way we want to. So there is a massive data play, and I would say it's a chess game, if anything, with different companies on how do we navigate this complex data flow in your business. So just like property managers are facing the fragmentation from an operations perspective, we're facing the fragmentation from a data perspective. And where do we get all this information when we're missing it from our key partners? On that note, I did want to touch up a tiny bit more on the white label format, because I think, in my opinion, the white label piece is what is increasing innovation. And to give you an example, about a year and a half ago, we decided to partner with one of the big lock companies in the industry. And they kind of turned us down saying, oh, well, we're here and your guys are going to be right here. So I don't know. So it kind of frustrated me, and I decided, you know what, I need to find a solution. And we don't have the resources to go out and integrate with every single smart lock on the market, because we've seen companies like, Aperto and Remote Lock do this for 10 plus years, or maybe not 10, I think it's 6 or 7, and are so focused on maintaining this and making sure it works. And we landed on a gem, and I know, John, you're very familiar with this gem called Seam, and it's basically just the API of smart locks. So it neutralized all of the smart lock focused companies, Aperto, Remote Lock, giving access to both PMS's guest experience platform and any other platform, the ability to have any smart locks, if not more than the smart lock focused companies, in a matter of a couple days, like a sprint, 2 weeks of engineering work, and that's done. And when I saw the impact that this had on our growth and obviously our partners' growth and so on, it made me realize that if we can focus more on this integration with other partners and this two-way sync, and also white label format, AutoHost, Superhog, Party, all these different tools to effectively centralize the operations while still using best-in-class systems. Because, Terry, I do have to disagree a bit. I think the one-stop shop, I build it all, is a very aggressive roadmap, not pointing to Tract, because they have proven themselves to be one of the best PMSs out there. But in general, for most property management systems, it is a very, very aggressive statement to make. And I've yet to see it in the space. So what are your thoughts on this?
I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. Is you're going to take the best PMSs. They're not going to be the all-in-one solution. They're going to need the DAX. They're going to need so put them to. So you take the strongest. They cannot go it alone. They can't. They need the other technologies. But you're going to take the best technologies in the business, and you're going to integrate those two technologies. They're going to take the PMS, which is the most important part of tech in our industry, and then you're going to take the other technologies, the strongest technologies. You're going to merge them together, and the big winners are going to be the ones that do more on one platform. You do more on Enzo, you do more on DAC, you do more in your PMS. Is what I'm saying.
So it's reducing the number of tools, but it's not necessarily one system that does it all. It's just finding the best in class for the key verticals and having one system that does that best vertical. Is that correct?
The deepest platforms, which right now are Breezeway, DAC, and Enzo, excluding a PMS. And then you pick whoever you think is the best PMS. But in our industry, I think one thing our industry should be prepared for, Francois, I think that you should be prepared for, as much as overpopulated as the PMS sector is, the next overcrowded, and I guess it's for sure, you guys are going to see competition that you never dreamed of seeing here. And it's going to be good. It's going to be good technology. It's going to be deep technology. And you guys, I include you in that. You guys are going to be the winners in this.
I appreciate it. What are the verticals, guys, that you think are sort of to manage a business? Like, let's say we have someone in the audience here that's listening that has, 10, 20 properties and wants to grow to 100, 200 in the next year or plus. What are the different verticals that they should start thinking about and how to, best have the best technologies? And so we briefly talked about guest experience. We talked about operations and maintenance. What are the other buckets that you guys would categorize? John, if you want to start us off on that, because I know you've got quite a few buckets on your end.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the day-to-day operation as well as internal team operations and things of that nature. I'm trying to pull up a map that Wheelhouse put together, and unfortunately I can't seem to pull it up right now. But there's access control, right? There is guest communication. There's channel distribution, um, revenue management. I mean, right now, what I'm seeing popping up these days is inventory management, right? So all the like Minoans, the Sojos, the Inhavens of the world, now they're trying to tackle how do we streamline inventory so our system tells you when you need to order these supplies rather than you having to track it, right? Like every problem there is, a new a new vertical appears in our industry. So, I mean, the list is long. Francois, you have the AJL map. That still is a fraction of all the verticals that we have in our industry, right? I think another one that's exciting, another vertical, are the integrators now, right? The companies that are integrating, they're not providing any other service other than integrating the different technologies. So, yeah, it's the list is long, but for the audience, what I would say is outside of your PMS and things that help you just run the operation of the business, there are key things like how do you communicate internally? Are you using WhatsApp to communicate with your team? Because that's going to fall apart really fast if you're communicating with a remote team with WhatsApp, right? So are you using Slack? That is part of the tech stack as well to make sure your phone system can do kind of a chain so that it all works. So it goes really deep because this really is a complex business with lots of moving parts. But most of those moving parts are predictable. And that's where technology can come in because it is predictable and you can solve it.
How about yourself, Terry? What are your big buckets? And we are going to answer the questions shortly thereafter. I'd say in 2, 3 minutes, guys, because I see some really, really interesting questions here. What are your thoughts in terms of the big buckets? And I know you've mentioned the names of the companies, but in terms of just the arching groups, again, operations and so on, what are your thoughts?
Um, as complicated as technology is in our industry, if you can break it down into the 10 core components of a tech stack, which are the PMS, the website, booking engine, distribution, operations, revenue management, CRM, guest communications, guest experience, home automation, digital marketing. But even of those 10, I think the best way to simplify it right now is get the best PMS you can afford, get the best website that you can afford, and you have to see the guest experience, the guest communications platforms. You have to align yourself with them. They're the future of our industry.
That's fair. And the fragmentation and guest experience is absolutely the next wave. I mean, we're seeing it from movement from hotels companies that, are coming into this space and trying to adapt to vacation rentals with their breadth of technology, or vice versa, companies in our space trying to move into hotels to bring in guest experience. And we're also seeing PMSs talk about it, even if they may not have certain functionalities. They realize the opportunity for sure. I agree with that. So for the last question, then we're going to open it up for Q&A. I guess, Terry, do you want to kind of illustrate your prediction with regards to, you'd mentioned V12 and touching a bit more on that
Yeah.
after and what it meant for the industry. So kind of what do we expect in the next year, 2 years, 5 years from this space as we see PMSs consolidate to specific winners? We're seeing fragmentation and guest experience happen right now, but also starting to consolidate towards clear winners. What's next? What are we going to see from this fragmentation, and how is it going to impact people's businesses?
What we're going to see is an answer to the fragmentation, and we already have it. It's right in front of our eyes here right now. And as far as there's going to be more technology come in. Good, I mean, good, really good technology, but I think it's going to slow a lot because we produce in the last. Just look at what we've done in the last 4 years from a technology standpoint. And then, you put that AGL graph up there, and it has like 400 different companies up there. You could take 800 companies and put that graph up there and say you got 4 years to beat that and never do it. That's how far we've come in 4 years. But to predict what's going to happen in the future, I've already said it's going to be the strongest PMSs are going to survive. The weaker ones, they're going to be in big trouble. And it's going to be doing more on one platform. It's going to be doing more in your PMS, and it's going to be doing more in your other outside platforms like Enzo and like DAC, and putting those two together. And there's no question that logging into 37 different dashboards is not the future of our industry.
Yeah, I would hope so as well. And I think the vacation rental industry is professionalizing. We're seeing more and more operators grow in size. I think we're seeing some signals, in my opinion, with the recent topics of Airbnb bust, as they call it, or Airbnb bust, of, if you're in this to make quick money fast, you're going to be you're going to be the first ones out of the space, in my opinion, if you're not thinking about how you're professionalizing your business, because this industry is becoming just as professional as hotels, if not more, with its use of technology. John, how about yourself? What are your thoughts in terms of the future and the predictions with that fragmentation?
I agree. I think there's there's only so much innovation, at a certain point. And I think as we're professionalized, I believe within the next, 1 or 2 years, there is going to be like formal short-term rental school education. Not the gurus, but like, like you have a hotel school. I think those types of things are going to happen. So people start operating similarly, and so you don't need the, all this entrepreneurial efforts. So I think it's going to consolidate and defragment somewhat. This is not so much on the fragmentation side, but one thing that I am seeing already is people are now trying to use technology to personalize their guest experience and everything, ChatGPT and everything. I actually think that's going to fall flat at a certain point, like literally trying to get themselves out of the hospitality of a hospitality business, right? But what I do see coming, and I know, Francois, you probably disagree because I know you use a lot of, AI and things. But what I do think is going to be happening is things like machine learning that helps us understand our guests, our data, our, like understanding that and fragmenting or segmenting, who we're targeting. I think that kind of access to data and information in consumable ways, not this huge data stream that everyone subscribes to. I think that's going to help professionalize our industry as well.
I agree in part, I'm going to say, with what you say. With regards to ChatGPT, we'll have to have a separate webinar on this subject. I'll be speaking about this at Vtour Summit, but I have quite a few thoughts on that. To open it up for the panel, just because I'm seeing it.
Francois, can I make one last point here? I don't think you are even looking at it properly, at your platform, at the other platforms. What you are doing, what Breezeway is doing, what is DAC doing? You guys are building PMS light platforms. You guys are actually PMS light platforms, and that's why I say that's you are.
It's true. I mean, I have to be very cautious of what I say because we're not looking to be a PMS, obviously, because we partner with PMSs. But I could certainly see this. Yeah,
I'm not saying that you are a PMS light platform for sure.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a fair assessment of it. I think I'm seeing, because we're trying to split this vertical from the overarching one-stop shop, I see it as its own. But you're right. If we're going with the assumption that the PMS is supposed to be the centralized management of your entire business, not just your listings, then you're right. We are, in a way, a light version of a PMS focused on one vertical. I agree with that. Now,
when you put those two together, it's an unbeatable.
That's true. That's true. But on that note, with regards to the questions that we're getting in, I'm seeing one in particular, which I think I've addressed quite a few times on sales calls and in general, which is around cost. So there is a cost factor to bringing on all of these different tools. and it starts to get expensive. You start with a PMS and it's $40 per listing per month. And then you add on a guest experience platform, it's another 10, and then this and then that. Next thing you know, you're spending $100 a month per listing. How do you justify the cost for technology?
I'll start very simply. An example is this, right? So I very early on, I brought on Price Labs or Wheelhouse. I tested them both, and the justification is if I had a human being doing it, it will cost me more. I'll get poorer results, right? So I kind of do a cost balance, of everything. And it's like, if I don't have a PMS, how much time am I going to be spending on a spreadsheet, doing this? Now there are some PMSs where it's like like a $10,000 onboarding fee, and then however much per month. Clearly, that's cost prohibitive to all but the largest operators, and they do that essentially to weed out people that don't fit their ideal customer type. But yeah, like if it's, let's say you're spending $100 a month, right? So that's $3,000. Sorry, $100 a month. So that's $4,000 a year. If that can replace a salary for me, it's like, and it gets a lot of the work done, then it justifies it, because otherwise I would have to go out and hire someone to do a lot of that work. It's a very high simplistic level of thinking, but if you think of it that way, I think a lot of the technology, it makes a lot of sense to spend that kind of money.
And how about yourself, Terry? How do you assess the cost factor of bringing on these tools?
At some point, our industry is going to have a very serious conversation about the cost of our tech stack, because a lot of it you can't make sense of at all, because it makes no sense at all. I'll give you a couple examples. You're paying your PMS 1% for a channel integration fee. You're paying a pricing tool 1% to do your pricing for you. You have, I'll use an example of your PMS has a direct integration with Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, Google, and then what do? You make a monthly donation to a channel manager. This stuff is making no sense. At some time, we're going to have a serious conversation about why people are doing what they're doing, because it makes no sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think it goes back to what John is saying about saving time, making more money. At the end of the day, it's on each system to justify the return on investment. On our case, we've shifted quite a bit from the saving time discussion to more of the making more money. And I think that you can see that number clearly with upsells and other pieces. Another question that I'm seeing as well is around ChatGPT and being cautious and concerned with this. I couldn't agree more with Gavin here on this one. I think ChatGPT is going to change the way we've been using a transformer model for quite some time, not ChatGPT 4 or any of the latest models yet. But I think when we get back to that topic of the $10,000 onboarding fee, why do you need a human to help you onboard? A system should be able to onboard itself. And I think systems like ChatGPT isn't about answering your guests' messages necessarily, but providing the right insights on the data that's out there of your PMS, whether it's getting you onboarded quicker, whether it's having almost like a personal assistant to do the more manual and tedious tasks, and eliminating certain frictions along the guest journey potentially as well. More to be discussed on that in April, May on our end. And the last bit I'm seeing as well is, don't forget, US is only one country, chaps. Fragmentation is fragmented geographically. Also something I could not iterate more. Being French, from France, not from Quebec, I see a lot of differences, both culturally and business-wise, between a French property manager and a North American property manager. Whether it's language barriers, whether it's the operational complexity. In Spain, you have to send IDs to the local authorities, to the Guardia Nacional, but in Italy, you have to send it to every single department, whereas in the US, you don't need to. So all of this differences means if you want to grow a business globally, fragmentation in a way will help you solve things while making it difficult for you to manage the business, because you'll have the right tools to deal with the different geographical issues you're facing. So I'm intrigued to see how the industry progresses to also consolidating this, not just from a tech perspective, but geographical perspective. Do you guys see a lot of businesses growing internationally like this? Terry, John, have you seen businesses that are able to have the perfect tech stack with properties around the world?
I see a lot of European companies, and they've been at it much longer. So most of them have their own proprietary and internal tech stack that they've built, um, and it works, right? It works for them. Although then the technology is very old, right? Like it's not taking advantage of a lot of the newer things. There are even European revenue management systems versus U.S. based revenue management systems, um, and I think they're over 1,000 PMSs, and I think 500 are in Europe, and 500 are very simplistic. 500 are in the U.S. So yes, it is fragmented. What I am seeing though are European big players in Europe moving into U.S. and vice versa. U.S. big technology players moving into the European market. We'll see how that goes because, like you said, like the regulations and all that stuff are very different. So
100%. On that note, we are going to wrap things up. It was a pleasure speaking with both of you. I know we're out of time here. I think the conversation is an even longer sit down when it comes to fragmentation. So we'll have to organize some sort of beer night or drink somewhere at the next conference so we can all chat about fragmentation. To wrap things up, how can we find you, John, and how can we find you, Terry? Let's start with you, John.
So I am fairly active on LinkedIn, and so if you search either Tech Tape or John on LinkedIn, you'll find me. And then email or website. Email is john.on, A-N, at gettechtape.com, and I'm fairly responsive.
100%. And how about yourself, Terry?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. And then if you go to vacationrentalsoftwareguy.com, you can contact me through there as well.
Love it. I bet we sparked a lot of controversy here in this chat, so I'm excited to see what the comment sections. Guys, go ahead and blow up the comment sections if you disagree. I think this is overall a conversation to continue to have as tech providers and as property managers as we both look to solve the problems of the vacation rental segment, the hospitality segment, if you will. On that note, thank you so much, Terry and John, for joining, and hoping to see you guys in person at the next conference, or in your case, Terry, here in Toronto.
Right.
Awesome.
Yes. I look forward to it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Thank you
Francois.
so much.